The morning sun cast a golden glow over the sprawling campus of St. Clair's Academy, one of the most prestigious schools in the city. Its towering gates and gleaming hallways spoke of wealth, tradition, and power. For most students, stepping through those gates was a moment of pride. But for Ethan, it was a test of courage. He clutched the straps of his faded backpack as he walked slowly toward the main building. His uniform was neat but worn from years of careful use. His shoes, though polished to the best shine he could manage, were old, scuffed leather with uneven soles, patched in places where the stitching had given way. They weren't what one would expect to see at a school where many students arrived in luxury cars and wore limited edition sneakers. Ethan kept his head down, hoping to blend into the crowd. But the moment he entered the courtyard, whispers started. "Hey, check out that kid's shoes. Those look like they came from a thrift store." "I didn't know." Street Claire's admitted charity cases. A ripple of laughter spread among a group of students standing near the steps. Ethan felt his chest tighten. He wanted to say something, anything, but the lump in his throat made it impossible. He simply walked on, pretending not to hear. Inside the assembly hall, the students were gathering for the morning welcome ceremony. It was a grand event, the first day of the term, with speeches from teachers, prefects, and the principal himself. The room buzzed with chatter, the sound of polished shoes clicking against the polished wooden floor. Ethan quietly found a seat in the back row, hoping to avoid attention. But as he slid into the chair, someone behind him sneered. "Careful not to scuff the floor with those relics you're wearing." The students around them laughed. Ethan's ears burned. He tried to keep his eyes on the stage, wishing desperately for the ceremony to start. Moments later, the doors at the front opened, and in walked Principal Harris. Tall, silver-haired, and impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, he carried himself with the air of authority. He was known for being strict, demanding respect, and above all, maintaining the school's reputation. Every student sat up straighter the moment he entered. Principal Harris began his usual speech about discipline, excellence, and pride in the institution. But midway through, his sharp eyes scanned the rows of students, and they landed on Ethan. He paused, narrowing his gaze. "You there," he said, pointing. His voice echoed through the hall. Heads turned. Ethan froze in his seat. "Stand up." Every student's attention was suddenly fixed on him. Ethan's legs felt like lead, but he slowly rose to his feet. Principal Harris looked him up and down, then shook his head. "What is your name, boy?" "Ethan, sir," he stammered. "Ethan," the principal repeated, his tone dripping with disdain. "Do you know what kind of school you have been admitted to?" St. Clair's is not just any institution. It is a place of prestige, a beacon of excellence. Our students are expected to carry themselves with dignity, discipline, and presentation. Ethan's face flushed red. The students were whispering, some stifling giggles. Harris stepped closer, raising his voice so the entire hall could hear. "Look at those shoes," he declared, pointing at Ethan's feet. "Are those truly fit for a student of St. Clair's? Scuffed, patched, barely holding together. Do you think this is acceptable?" Laughter erupted across the hall. Ethan's heart sank. Every sound of mockery cut into him like a blade. He wanted to vanish, to sink into the floor and never be seen again. His fists clenched at his sides, but he kept his head bowed, refusing to let the tears forming in his eyes spill. Principal Harris continued, as if lecturing him were part of the morning's program. "A student's appearance reflects the school itself. If we allow this kind of negligence, what message do we send? That we tolerate mediocrity. That we accept poverty as an excuse for lack of standards." The students burst out laughing again. Some pointed at Ethan's shoes, whispering behind their hands. To them, it was entertainment, a spectacle on the first day. Ethan swallowed hard, his throat dry. He could have spoken up. He could have told them that his mother was the chairwoman of the school board, that their laughter meant nothing compared to the truth he carried. But he didn't. His mother had always told him, humility is strength. Let your actions speak louder than your words. So he stood there silently, enduring the humiliation, his head bowed but his spirit unbroken. After a few moments, Harris dismissed him with a wave of his hand. Sit down, boy, we will deal with this later. Ethan sank back into his chair, the weight of 100 eyes still pressing on him. Around him, students snickered and muttered, but he stared straight ahead, refusing to let them see how much it hurt. He thought of his mother, kind, gentle, and wise. She had insisted he enroll under his own name, without revealing who she was. I don't want you to be treated differently, she had said. I want you to understand people, to see how they behave when they don't know who you are. That's how you'll learn who your true friends are. At the time, Ethan hadn't fully understood. But now, sitting in that hall with laughter ringing in his ears, he understood perfectly. The students and even the principal had judged him for his shoes, for the surface, not the soul beneath. And yet, he felt no anger toward his mother. Instead, a quiet fire ignited inside him. They didn't know the truth, but soon they would. And when they did, it wouldn't just be their laughter that echoed in this hall, it would be their silence. Ethan tightened his grip on his backpack, silently vowing to himself, this isn't the end. This is only the beginning. The following morning, the school grounds buzzed with unusual energy. Rumors spread like wildfire. The chairwoman is visiting today. Teachers rushed between classrooms, frantically adjusting displays and making sure every detail of the school looked perfect. Students straightened their uniforms, whispering about how powerful she was, though none of them had ever met her. Principal Harris was especially restless. He stood before the mirror in his office, tugging at his tie and smoothing his suit jacket for the 10th time. He rehearsed his welcoming speech, determined to impress. If she approves of me, he thought, my influence at St. Clair's will only grow. By mid-morning, word arrived. The chairwoman's car had entered the gates. Everyone rushed to the courtyard. Teachers lined up at the front. Students craned their necks, eager for a glimpse of the mysterious woman who owned the school. A sleek black car rolled to a stop, and the driver stepped out to open the rear door. Silence fell over the crowd as a woman emerged, graceful, poised, dressed in a tailored suit that spoke of quiet power. Her presence commanded respect without her saying a single word. Principal Harris stepped forward with a broad, rehearsed smile. Welcome, Madam Chairwoman, he said, bowing slightly. Good morning, she replied warmly. Her voice carried the authority of a leader but the gentleness of a mother. But then, as she turned, another figure stepped out of the car, Ethan. The same boy who had been mocked the day before, the one whose old shoes had been ridiculed in front of the entire school. He walked confidently to his mother's side. A wave of murmurs spread through the students. Principal Harris blinked, his smile faltering. For a moment, his polished composure cracked. The chairwoman's gaze swept over the courtyard, then landed on Harris. Her expression sharpened. Principal Harris, she said coolly, I heard something disturbing yesterday. Something that cannot go unaddressed. Harris shifted uncomfortably. Oh, what? What might that be, madam? She gestured toward Ethan. My son was humiliated in your assembly. By you. The courtyard erupted in gasps. Students' jaws dropped as the truth hit them. The boy they laughed at, the one they mocked for his shoes, was the chairwoman's son. Harris paled, his words catching in his throat. I didn't know he was your son, madam. I meant no disrespect. It was a misunderstanding. Her voice cut through the air like a blade. That's precisely the issue. You judged him by what he wore, not who he was. You mocked a child in front of his peers, stripping him of dignity for the sake of appearances. Ethan stood quietly beside his mother, watching as the same principal who had humiliated him now squirmed in front of the entire school. Students who had laughed yesterday avoided his gaze, their cheeks burning with shame. Harris tried to recover. Madam, you must understand, I was only maintaining the school's reputation. This institution is built on discipline and presentation. If we allow discipline, she interrupted, her eyes narrowing. You confuse cruelty with discipline, Mr. Harris. You speak of reputation, but what reputation is worth having if it's built on humiliating the vulnerable? What values do you teach when you mock a student for being less fortunate? Her words hung heavy in the air. No one dared to move. Ethan finally spoke, his voice steady but soft. Principal Harris, yesterday you said my shoes weren't fit for this school. You told me I didn't belong. But what makes someone worthy of an education? Their shoes, or their character? A stunned silence followed. For the first time, Harris had no reply. The chairwoman turned to the students. All of you laughed, didn't you? You joined in the mockery. Let this be a lesson. The worth of a person is never measured by the clothes on their back or the shoes on their feet. True dignity comes from kindness, humility, and respect. Heads dropped across the courtyard. Students shuffled uncomfortably, ashamed of their behavior. Some looked at Ethan with regret, realizing the cruelty of their laughter. She turned back to Harris. As for you, Principal, you will issue a public apology, not just to my son, but to the entire student body, for failing to uphold the values you claim to represent. Sweat beaded on Harris' forehead. He swallowed hard, then turned to Ethan. His voice shook. I am deeply sorry, Ethan. I should never have spoken to you that way. It was wrong. Ethan met his eyes calmly. An apology is only meaningful if it changes behavior. I don't want what happened to me to happen to anyone else. The chairwoman nodded approvingly. Well said, son. Harris lowered his head, humiliated in the very hall where he had once held power. The students who once laughed at Ethan now clapped softly, then louder, until the entire courtyard was filled with applause, not mocking this time, but filled with respect. Ethan stood taller, his old shoes still on his feet, now a symbol rather than a shame. They represented resilience, humility, and strength, the very values the school was meant to teach. From that day forward, no one dared to mock Ethan again. And whenever students looked at his shoes, they were reminded of a lesson far greater than anything taught in their textbooks. True worth lies not in appearances, but in the heart. Dash dash dash.